Hello everybody and welcome back to the Death Row History Channel. I am your host, Mr. Toad. And today's video will cover the media's role during an execution and the restrictions put in place for the media. No folks, it's not media suppression. It's to protect the public from the realities of an execution. And I will talk a little bit about the execution of Ruth Snyder and why these rules have to be in place. For those that are not familiar, Ruth Snyder was executed on January 12th, 1928. And right before her execution, a reporter snapped a photo of her in the chair. January 13th, 1928, front page of a newspaper in New York City. It said, "Dead." And the public went crazy. Because, see, the funny thing is, the public wants the death penalty, but they don't want to see how it actually happens. And Ruth Snyder caused the public to face that reality. Where I live in Oklahoma, people talk about wanting to bring back public executions. And no, that'll never happen. It's good the way it is. The people need to just leave it alone, let it run its course. But with Ruth Snyder, the guy had attached a camera to his ankle and ran a lead up his arm and snapped the photo. And, you know, he was participating in sensational journalism. Now, he was not by any means following the protocol of the prison, and what he did was, well, despicable. Because even though they're condemned, and even though they're going to be killed by the state, there's still people, they still have that little sliver of a right to privacy during their final moments. So, that was in 1928. What's it like in 2020? Well, I can't speak for many states, but I can speak for Oklahoma. And what is it like in Oklahoma? Well, the media is notified of an execution in 15 days before the execution. The DOC will let certain members of the media know, hey, we're going to execute someone. And after that, the day of the execution, they traveled to McAlester, Oklahoma. Now, I have to make this distinction. I have to explain something here, because when I read the protocol, something stuck out to me that if you're not from Oklahoma, you would not understand. So I feel it necessary to explain. Okay, the death chamber for Oklahoma is at Oklahoma State Penitentiary, McAlester, affectionately referred to as Big Mac, for reasons, obvious reasons. However, where the media are put and where the media sits up at is at the Jackie Brannon Correctional Center. and again, this is where, if you're not from Oklahoma, you don't understand this. Jackie Brannon is a minimum security prison next door to Big Mac. Literally, the fence for Jackie Brannon stops, and the wall of Big Mac starts. They're, like, literally next door to each other. So, the visitation area of Jackie Brannon is set up for the media during an execution. So if you have, say, 100 reporters, then 100 reporters, the number is grossly exaggerated, but for the example here, it helps with the logistics of it. So, 100 reporters, you're talking news, you're talking local TV, you're talking state TV, New York Times, Chicago Tribune, Wall Street Journal, the Daily Oklahoman, Tulsa World, papers out of Texas, just in general, national papers, local papers, state papers, all of them come in for executions. It is sensational in that retrospect. Now, they will be put at Jackie Brannon. They will not leave Jackie Brannon. Before the execution, the guard will come in, and he will put everybody's name in a bowl, and he will draw names for the 12 people that go to the execution. But at this point, this sounds good, but what allows a newspaper or television station to be picked for execution, or to cover an execution? Well, in Oklahoma, it is a newspaper that has more than 50,000 circulation. The Associated Press always has a seat. Oklahoma news sources get precedence. They get first dibs. So your Tulsa World, your Daily Oklahoman, the Channel 4 out of Oklahoma City, Channel 12, nothing where I live, because all of our news comes out of Texas. But KSWO out of Lawton, these are all news sources that would give precedence. Now, after the 12 people are picked, their job, before they ever type anything for their own reports, their job is to brief everybody else in the room about the execution. What they said, did it go, was it botched? How long it took him to die? What time the execution started? What time it ended? All of that. They have to write all this down. Yes, I said write, because in Oklahoma, and you can look at the protocols in many other states and see the same thing. In Oklahoma, you cannot bring in a recording device, no cell phones, no cameras, nothing. Just a pen and paper, or pencil and paper. And the paper generally is a legal pad. That's it. And people can say what they want. Oh, that's antiquated. Yeah, but they're still trying to protect the process. Because situations like Clayton Lockett where things did go sideways, all we knew, the public in Oklahoma, all we knew was what the media told us and what the DOC would later tell us. That's it. So the people that were in the visiting rooms, they saw Clayton Lockett, his final moments, that final 45 minutes of his life, they witnessed it and they reported it to the public, which I can imagine would have been excruciating. And for those on the channel, you've heard me mention Clayton Lockett many times in videos, but Mr. Lockett definitely changed the way that executions should be handled. If you ever want to see a reason for the replacement of lethal injection, look at Mr. Lockett. The man literally died of a heart attack in the middle of an execution because they couldn't find a vein. And to me, that's just not acceptable. But that's beside the point. So, their job is to report what happens in the execution chamber. They take it back to their colleagues. They tell the colleagues, hey, this is what we saw. And the colleagues write out their articles. And then after all that's done, then the 12 witnesses can go and write their own articles for their respective papers or respective news outlets. You know, you have videos here on YouTube of the news media, of local news going live after an execution, in which they bring out the reporter that was in the chamber and he gives his testimony and what he saw and all that. So, you know, stuff like that does happen. But in the chamber itself, you have a legal pad and a pen. And that's the way it should be. Because what happened with Ruth Snyder back in 1928 has never happened again. And justifiably, it shouldn't. Because that was a major breach in protocol. And that breach in protocol could cost someone, whether it costs them their life, their journalistic reputation, or whatever. It costs them in the long run. But anyway, this has been Mr. Toad with yet another episode of the Death Row History Channel. I hope you all enjoy your weekend, week, or whatever whenever you see this video. But as for me, I'm gone.